I show that my AT&T, we have 1:03, so I'm going to go with that time since all my clocks are different. Zoom etiquette. I know that we've already talked with some people who may not be able to be on camera, and that's fine. But it is a policy of ours that we try to have everyone's faces showing. It makes us feel a little more like a community that way. And just a little more of that Zoom etiquette that we try to maintain here. At this time, I'll go ahead and start with the board roll call. And Carlene Anders.
Here. Yes, I'm here.
Yay, thank you. Dell Anderson. Manuel.
Present.
Yay, thank you. Ray Eichmeyer.
Present.
Thank you. Linda McKay.
Present.
Thank you. Rosalinda Kibbe.
I'm here.
Senator Warnick, I saw you there.
Here.
Welcome. Dr. Tuggy. Maddie Osborne.
Good afternoon, I'm here.
Thank you. Teresa Atkinson.
Here.
Thank you. Nancy Spurgeon. And Peter Morgan. All right. Let's just try Dell Anderson. Is he on yet? No? Okay. So we have some absences. This is the last time probably that I will be able to do the land acknowledgement, but I do want us all to acknowledge that we are at this moment residing on the ceded lands of the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation, which are comprised of 12 individual tribes that have been put on the Colville Reservation. And I want to welcome you all and welcome them as well as a partner, a great partner of ours. Are there any conflicts of interest that anyone would like to declare after reviewing the agenda prior to the meeting? If there are no conflicts at this time, as the meeting goes along, if you do feel like you need to disclose a conflict, please raise your hand and let us know so that we can have that reflected in the minutes. Also, if you are a guest, please sign in to the chat with your name and your organization so that we can welcome you. If anyone has any public comments, it is open at this time if you wanted to make a public comment. I'll give that just a minute. And hearing none, we'll go ahead and address that again at the end of the meeting if there's time allowed. We go on now forward with the approval of the consent agenda. It's a little bit different today in that a separate attachment had been sent out to everyone as part of the meeting notice for the Family Health Centers of OMAC doing business as advance agreement. And it was a separate attachment. I didn't know, John, if you had something you wanted to add to this discussion prior to approving the consent agenda.
Yeah, I'll just share. This is new because last meeting we approved the ED contracting authority resolution. And so any contracts greater than 250,000 come to the board for approval. Upon discussion, we decided to put it in the consent agenda. So you all have a copy as a separate attachment in the meeting request as well. And you are welcome if any questions come out, just like any other consent agenda items, to always feel free if it needs to be pulled out for further discussion. I think the other context I would apply to this just for everyone is this contract is larger also because it's a combination of multiple contracts we've had for recovery coach work in the past. So there's only one portion of it that is new, and it's the ask for Advance to be the administrator of our recovery coach network this year. So that is the primary change to work that's been occurring, as well as it's a 2-year contract as a whole. The Finance Committee had a chance to review it, provide some additional feedback prior to it getting into the consent agenda. And at that point, if anyone has questions, we can, or I will leave it at that.
Do we have any questions at this time? Not wanting anyone to feel like something had just been slid in to them. We can also defer this to another place in the agenda, but we did want to, I felt that this was a proper place to do that. And if there are no objections, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Starts on page 1 through 11. Includes minutes from the November meeting, financial report, and then this new agreement.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
This is Carleen, I'll second.
Thank you, Carleen. And any other questions? This is your chance to ask any questions prior to the voting. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would be nay. And abstention. Anyone abstain? We have some absences and they'll be reflected in the minutes. Motion carried. Thank you. Consent agenda is approved for December. So at this time, I invite John for the executive director update.
All right, and welcome everyone. And Morgan, I think you're going to share on the screen, correct? The
Yes.
PowerPoint? Perfect. Well, welcome everyone, and we are at our annual meeting again this year. It's amazing every time it comes up upon us that we get to this time and we start to get into the holiday season. But just again, I want to thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for all the hard work that you guys have put in this year as board members in our board meetings and our retreats. I know a number of you sit on either our stewardship council, some may sit on our strategy, our shared measurement task force. Some of us sit on various committees. So I recognize all the work and time you all put into this effort. And I just want to give a big shout out. If you go to the next slide, I really want to give a shout out to a few individuals who will be transitioning from roles this year. So Molly, who's been our board chair for a number of years. This is her last last board meeting, I should say. We're still wrapping her into a few additional committee meetings before the end of the year. But her last board meeting in this role. And so just want to thank Molly for all the time and effort she's put into this and the ability and the skills she brought to bring us to this direction as an organization. She is always great about reaching out, asking questions, facilitating meetings. You may not know, but she's doing it with less heat today. So then she also is able to fashionably dress well while staying warm at the same time. So again, thank you, Molly, for all you've done. For Rosalinda, who's been our treasurer for 3 years and transitioning on, including being there when we started the finance committee, started investments, part of the shift from the health department to Clifton, Larson, and Allen. She has been a wealth of knowledge as being our treasurer. You are a CPA, right, Rosalinda? I always know you have finance knowledge that you don't always proactively share.
I have one more exam I need to take.
She's pretty much a CPA, even if she hasn't finished the exam. She's as smart, if not smarter, than most CPAs I know. Sorry, Sarah. So thank you for all the hard work that you've put in. It's been, just even in my role, it's been a blessing to have her as part of really a mentor in my mind and helping me with the finance work. Neither of them are leaving, so they will still be on the board. They don't get off that easily, but they'll be transitioning into other roles. Sadly, I wanted to, pick on Dr. Tuggy a little bit, and I don't see him on the screen today. But Dr. Tuggy will be stepping down from the board at the end of this year. So I just want to give him a huge shout out as well. He's been on our strategy work group and our stewardship council. And, you know, as a rural provider in Okanagan County, he's provided a lot of insight into the work that we are doing. I've always appreciated his knowledge and insight. So I'm assuming he will never mind if we reach out to get any additional information or ask him questions, but, you know, again, just wish him the best as he continues on in his journey in life. So thank you all for all that you do, but I really wanted to give a huge shout out to the three of you. If you go to the next slide. Just as a reminder for you all, at the end of this board meeting, once all the board members and officers are approved, you'll start seeing this month in December meeting requests for 2024 board meetings. Based on input and discussions, we kept the meetings to every other month on Mondays. We pushed it back to 2 o'clock. We know we have a few board members that it's always been really tight for 1 o'clock to make it. And so we decided to make that push back. We also went down from 2 retreats to 1 retreat. We originally had 2 retreats because we were spending a lot of time at the end of every year focused on our finances. And we've really, over the course of the last 2 years, done a great job with the help of CLA getting that integrated into our monthly meetings and our financial reports with our finance committee. And so we really know we need 1 primary retreat to really step back and focus on strategy and the direction of the organization as a whole. And we are looking at doing that in the fall. So right now we are looking at September 9th for that meeting. And you'll see that come on the calendar. Again, you'll see board meetings come out. You'll also find finance committee, executive committee, governance committee members. You'll also be seeing those come through over this next month as we get those meetings set. And we may, for the smaller committee meetings, we might, you know, do more of a survey to see what dates and times work specifically for your committee members and if we want to make a change. Next slide. So I do want to just jump in and give a few state and partner updates today, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time today just giving you guys a quick up to speed on the Healthcare Authority's Medicaid Transformation Project Waiver 2.0 update, and then give you guys a few local regional updates. So today I just wanted to level set and give you guys a little bit of context of right now what we know and what we don't know about the Medicaid Waiver 2.0. One few things I'd love to share just to level set with this as a whole is, as we all know, the waiver was approved June 30th, actually, of 2023. And when you hear the word approved, you assume that you're going to switch right into implementation after that, starting in July. But really, that's the starting phase of a lot of the planning processes that go into the waiver. And so we've been doing a lot of work, a lot of conversations with our partners at the Washington State Healthcare Authority, with our partners in the managed care organizations who play a vital role in this work, as well as with my other colleagues across the accountable communities of health to really get a lot of this work into place. And a lot of this first portion of this work is focused on protocol development so that we can create the mechanisms to do this work and the mechanisms to get funding out to our communities to do this work. So I say that because 1 protocol has been submitted at the end of October, and I'll run through this in more detail, to CMS. And so that's still in the process of getting approval. We still, over the course of the next year and a half, have 3 other protocols to submit. So as I provide this context, what I want to share is this is what we currently know as of today. There are still a lot of conversations going on that may adjust some of what you see on this slide and some of the details. So I can't make any promises that when this all is finalized, it will look exactly like this, but I also want to keep you guys up to speed. So if you go to the next slide, few things of what we do know. What we do know is that the waiver and the work that the accountable communities of health that are going to be doing under this waiver is focused on community-based care coordination and health-related social needs services. And so really what that means is a lot of the focus is around community-based care coordination and connecting individuals with those social needs that they need to live healthy and thriving lives in our community. A few things I would call out is that DOH Care Connect across the state did a lot of great work of getting community-based care coordination set and getting that base established. And so there is a Care Connect hub in every region, and a lot of Waiver 2.0 will also take that great work that's been established and amplify it, as DOH has really shifted that vision to broader connection with care, not just those with COVID patients, and how are we supporting this broad. It is in great alignment as the ARPA funds are starting to wind down and a lot of the COVID funds are winding down, that this will be an opportunity to continue to enhance the kind of work that's been done. We know that significant funds are going to be coming into our region focused on community-based care coordination. So over the course of 5 years, specific to health-related social needs, there's going to be an estimate of about $32 million in the region. How that's fully going to get distributed, there's a lot of questions around it. But I think the emphasis around that is also to think about, in the original waiver, community-based care coordination was one of the potential projects we could select. And so as we looked at the Pathways Hub and care coordination, we invested in our region about $4.5 million into that work over the lifespan of the waiver. Now that's really predominantly the focus of the work, not Pathways Hub, but community-based care coordination. And we're looking at a much larger investment. So I preface that to say that as we get into this work and we talk more about community-based care coordination over the course of next year, we're looking at a much grander scale than what we've done in the past. The state's really looking at what they call as hubs to facilitate and deliver the approval, the delivery of approved health-related social needs services. So you'll hear the term hubs a lot in the state level. I would always emphasize, as those questions come up, always come back and connect. Caroline is our lead on this work. Connect with Caroline and I for clarification on how this specifically works down at the state level. But they're looking at ACHs and those care coordination hubs in the region to support this work moving forward. The other thing I would call out is reentry is a huge component of this work as well, or is a specific carve-out population. And so you're going to be seeing a few things specifically called out for the reentry, which is reentry from the criminal justice system, with really a timeline to start that work in the middle of 2025. So we're talking about 1.5 to 2 years from now. The reason why I want to emphasize that is because the work we've been doing with the recovery coaches and transitions out of the jail is put us in a really, really good position to support that work. We have strong relationships with our criminal justice facilities in the area. We are already doing a lot of peer support in the jails. And so a lot of that work, the approval of the advance contract that we just made, will help us really align with what that work's going to look like in the future. If you move to the next slide. When I said that there were protocols and funding that needed to get approved, there are 4 main protocols attached to this. So this slide is branded with the Healthcare Authority because the Healthcare Authority created this slide. And so anything you see is something they created that I wanted to present back to you. But this just really gives you a sense of the protocols and the services that are going to be done and what key components of things that they're expected to fund. So when you hear the 32 million, you're really looking at health-related social needs services. So those first 2 columns, the HRSN infrastructure and the HRSN services. So the first pot of funding that will be coming through the waiver is really going to be that HRSN infrastructure, which is really focused on A, supporting some of the core capacities of ACHs, and B, really supporting capacity building of our community-based organizations to deliver community-based care coordination. So one of the things we recognize when we talk about community-based care coordination is it's best when it's provided by those who live and work in our community. But to get organizations to that level, there's going to be some capacity building that needs to be done in those organizations. And so part of the funding in the waiver is really going to be supporting to build that up. And then the second column is really focused on health-related social needs services. And so this really covers things like hub overhead for case management. So as we think of creating systems for referral and connection, there's a cost associated with this. So health-related social needs services should help pay for that ecosystem to get people referred and connected. It also will pay for case management services through community health workers. And I preface this by saying that case management is the CMS term for community-based workforce. So CMS really likes to put things in a clinical language. And so case management is synonymous in the work when we talk about building a community-based workforce and community-based care coordination. As well, that funding will also be utilized to implement other health-related social needs services, that the state is looking at through this waiver, which could include medically tailored meals, support transitional housing, rental assistance, and any other components that fall under that. There's a list of really 10 to 12 health-related social needs services that they're looking at implementing as part of this waiver. And that funding would go to support that. The other thing I would say is there's also, again, I said reentry population has a special carve out, and there will be funding available to do similar work for the reentry population. And this actually includes funding to support our criminal justice institutions in building the infrastructure themselves to be able to deliver this. So I think at some point in time, it would be great for us to share some information back on the work that's going with the reentry population, but this also includes in allowing Medicaid to become active 90 days prior to leaving jail, which also then includes a number of capacities that criminal justice facilities have to build in to make sure that they're getting reimbursed for Medicaid. If you go to the next slide. Oops, sorry, I missed all the things. Go back one slide. Oh, forward one, sorry. Oh, maybe I missed it. Anyways, we'll go here. This just gives you a sense of how some of the funding is broken down for the health-related social needs work. And so when I gave the $32 million figure, this is when you look at the end, you can see kind of the spread of that. When you look what's focused on building capacity and what's focused on delivering services, you can see that in the HRSN services case management line and the HRSN infrastructure. This is just for that infrastructure, and for HRSN services, this is really to build that community-based care coordination workforce. So again, this just gives you an estimate of what the breadth of this work is going to look like over the next few years. Again, these are still, what I would qualify is these are still estimates, and a lot of this work is in negotiation with CMS. So you could go back and tell Healthcare Authority that this is what they've committed, but they're in negotiation. So I'm trying to get you up to speed, but some of this stuff could still change in the end. Move to the next slide. This just gives you kind of a sense of timelines for protocol submissions and work. So best way I can summarize it is basically spring of this next year, we would expect infrastructure protocols and funding to be available. Middle of this next year, we would expect health-related social needs services to be able to get started. And really, the Healthcare Authority is looking at starting with housing services and community-based care coordination services, and then over the course of the waiver, implementing them all. And then the fall, we would see reentry capacity building dollars available the fall of 2024. And then again, middle of 2025 is when we'd really start engaging in reentry services. This is, again, a general timeline that the Healthcare Authority has shared. So this timeline may adjust, but this is probably a good conservative timeline. The other thing I want to say in all this is that these processes and these conversations can get technical and complicated at a time. And I do want to give a shout out to our partners at the Healthcare Authority, because I do feel like they have been collaborative partners in this discussion. And I do feel like they're working at the best intent of our region. Go to the next slide. So I'll pause before I get to regional updates. And I see Teresa has a hand up. So Teresa, what question do you have?
Yeah, so I think I know the answer to this, but for the good of the order. So if we don't spend the whole allocation each year, does it just keep rolling forward?
So good question, for this waiver, you can roll years forward. So if we don't spend all of year one, it can roll
Okay.
into year two and continue on. And year one started July 1st of this year. So, right, by the time things get approved, the likelihood of us being able to spend some of that funding by the end of this year is minimal. So that will roll over. What I would say is the sense I'm getting is it's not going to be like the original waiver where we ended the waiver and we still had funds that we hadn't expended. I think if we don't really have a good sense of how we're going to spend these funds and document that expenditure, that at the end, we wouldn't end up with a pot of funds that we have flexibility with. So we do need to be more diligent of ensuring that like the funding is designated, allocated, and out the door by the end of the 5 years.
And is it a state year or fiscal year? Is it July 1?
So it's July through June, and it goes based on the approval date of the waiver. So the original waiver was actually a January through December. This one is a July through June. So they like to keep us on our toes, I guess. But perfect questions. Other questions?
Let's get to work.
I like that attitude, Ray. And I guess Ray set us up to segue to some of the regional updates. And I'm going to turn it over to, I see Linda giving. Linda McKay is also celebrating with wonderful Zoom features. If anyone has ever seen those before, she will teach you on how to use them. And I'm going to turn it over to Caroline because there's some stuff coming in 2024 around community-based care coordination that I wanted to ensure she had an opportunity to update everyone.
Thanks, John. I love those balloons, Linda. You'll have to show me how to do that. So to Ray's point of let's get to work, I think before I dig into the first bullet point on this slide, I did want to mention that we have had 2 meetings now of a regional advisory committee around community-based care coordination. And the reason we're pulling that group together is to really make sense of the big picture. So like, how do we weave together the health-related social needs that John just described with DOH Care Connect, with the Recovery Navigator program, with Health Home, right? Like all these elements that are part of our community-based care coordination infrastructure, we need to weave together, or else we're just going to build these little silos that are so easy to build when they come through different funding structures. So I want to give a shout out to the committee members. Ray is a member of that advisory committee, as is John, and just for the benefit and just awareness for you all, I'm gonna put the list of folks that are involved in that advisory committee in the chat. And so moving on with this first bullet point, I'm excited to bring some updates to you around some things that we mentioned in the past. I think the last update we had done around community-based care coordination was at the April board meeting. And at that time, we mentioned some of the efforts we're working on with a couple work groups, the resource directory work group and the IT platform work group. And we've done some great planning over the course of the last year with the resource directory work group. We had an awesome retreat in Pateras in June, a full day retreat. And now that we've spent all this time understanding what it takes to build a healthy resource information ecosystem, our work group designed some partnership models that we've turned into specific scenarios, pilot scenarios of the types of collaborative partnerships we'd like to see in our region to improve the quality of resource data. And that's a really important element because everyone needs to know what resources are available. Clinicians want to know where to refer people out when they have non-clinical needs. Those providing community-based care coordination, whether they're recovery coaches or community health workers, they want to know where to turn people to for the help that they need. And Everyone's got their own resource directories. None of them are super robust. And this is something that the Regional Resource Work Group has been working on. And we're at a point where we're ready to release a request for proposal for partners to implement some of these pilots that we co-designed this past year. So we were in the planning phase and we're ready to move into implementation. So we're ready to get to work, Ray. And the plan that we're going to roll out is to open up the applications in January. They would be open from January through March. Responsive proposals would then move into a technical assistance stage, where the applicants would receive some coaching and support to develop really, really robust plans that hit the mark, that meet our criteria and objectives. And then those detailed plans would be reviewed by our Regional Resource Directory Work Group by the end of June. And the reason we wanted to bring those updates to you today is that what this means is that we plan on asking the board to approve a budget for this work, probably by June 2024. Once we have a better understanding of the scale of investments that are being proposed. So we'll make sure we keep the board up to date, or the finance committee will keep you posted as we learn more. But don't be surprised when you see that request for proposals go out in January. And if you can, definitely help us get the word out. I'll pause there to see if you have any questions about that specific element of our community-based care coordination infrastructure. Any questions, things I can clarify? Okay. John, I'll turn it back to you.
Perfect. And also, as part of this work, just to call out too, we'll work with the finance committee in their monthly meetings as well, and bring additional information and more details to them as we're crafting this prior to bringing it to the full board. Other few things I want to call out. Wendy is not here today, but she's been working on a few grants that we're planning on submitting, and she actually submitted a Career Builders grant to the ESD this last week in partnership with Wenatchee Valley College and Big Bend Community College to look at building behavioral health career pathways into the colleges in support with school districts as well. So I will have her summarize some of that information. We can share it out to the board so that you can see what some of the work is going on underneath that. As well, in February, we plan to apply for a USDA grant focused on telehealth. And so really in the expansion and continuation of the work that we're doing, we're going to be submitting for a USDA telehealth grant, which you can submit up to $1 million for the grant. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up today is because if we were to get awarded and it was above the $250,000, we would be bringing that contract to you guys as a board for approval. It also requires some level of matching, and we still have restricted funds available for telehealth for the work that we are doing. So we already have funding set aside that we can utilize as matching for this grant as well. But few things that the funds can be used for. Funds can be used to purchase or support audio, video, and interactive video equipment, broadband facilities used for distance learning or telemedicine, computer hardware, network components and software, instructional program, limited technical assistance, and instructions on how to use distance learning and telemedicine equipment. I can have Wendy come back and bring more information on that as well. But again, I wanted to give you guys a heads up that that will be occurring so that if we do end up getting awarded and it goes into the contracting phase, you guys aren't surprised that that work is coming down the pike. Other thing I just want to give a shout out for on our webpage, Morgan has been able to complete work around our equity statement. And so I can figure out how to do this on my computer. I'm going to add that in the chat. So I want to encourage you all to go to our webpage, to our equity page, and read through our equity statement and the work we've been doing. And so really, we had crafted and developed an equity statement in the past, and we wanted to revamp it to feel like it was more practical to the work we do, the way we engage partners into this work, and how we really view equity as an organization. And really Morgan did a great job capturing that, and I encourage you guys to read through that. It's really focused through the lens of how we lean into distributed leadership, how we focus on building that civic muscle of individuals in our community, and how we really promote partners to do that same, so that really the work that we are doing in our community is community driven. And then last thing I just wanted to update everyone on is that we are working at building an advocacy agenda and working with regional partners to build out an advocacy agenda for 2025. We are way too late for this kind of legislative session in 2024, and it's a short session. And so we've been in conversations with Blake Baldwin from Lodestar Partners, who is they are a lobbying firm that technically their offices are in Seattle, but Blake Baldwin is a local resident of Wenatchee. And he's been helping us start to look at ideas on how we can build out an agenda to start figuring out how we identify advocacy priorities for our region and how we would narrow it down for the kind of work we would do for Thriving Together. We're not looking at moving into lobbying for specific bills at this current juncture, but we are looking at how we can be more in tune to what is occurring in Olympia, where the needs are in our region, and act as a regional voice for that kind of work. So that work is still getting formed, but that would be starting sometime second quarter of next year, once session is over and everyone is really more focused in the planning phase. Any questions on anything? Perfect. Then I turn it back to you, Molly.
All right, thank you. And at this time, we're going to bring up the governance committee, Linda McKay, for the approval of the slate of board members and officers for 2024. All right.
All
Thank you.
right. Thank you, Molly. I'm guessing I'm sitting here at Lake Roosevelt Elementary, so I'm thinking you and I are not too far apart.
Yes.
Sorry, little sidebar there, everyone. So in our packets, and it's on page 12, I believe, is our slate of board member nominations, and then we do have one addition. So what the governance committee is proposing bringing forward to you are the following. We're happy that Teresa is returning with us as our public health representative through 2026. Nancy as our Chelan Douglas Chai, Carlene with our restructure in that our at-large position, and Ray as well in that at-large position. So we are super excited to have everybody, all of those returning. So thank you for your willingness and your passion to continue to do this work. It's exciting to have that returning. So as Ray said, let's get to work. He's ready. In addition, our health plan representative is Maddie, and that seat is now 3 years. So her expiration date is 2025. In terms of our various committees, our proposals are, I would be shifting my role from governance committee chair to executive committee chair. So you'll see there myself as chair, Dell as vice chair, Peter as our treasurer, and Molly as our secretary for the next year. Finance committee would be Peter, Rosalinda, and Teresa. And then last but not least, the governance committee, Manuel will slide into my chair role, and Carlene and myself. I'm thinking we're going to do 2 separate nominations because the new board member one will come separate. Yeah, John's looking at me. Sarah's looking at me. All right. Any questions about our recommended nominations and committee work? Okay. Is this where Molly asks for the
I think
motion?
so. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm said hearing no questions. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the board decision form for the approval slate of nominees for 2024.
This is Manuel, so moved.
Do I have a second?
I can second that, Nancy Spurgeon.
All right, this is a chance for any additional questions, last chance. And hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed would be nay. Abstain. All right, we are motion carried and approved. Thank you. Thank you everyone for stepping up again for 2024. And now it's a new nominee. Linda?
Yes. And our new nominee is here joining us today, Lori Bergman. Many of you may already know Lori. I just was first introduced to Lori. We are recommending that Lori join our board as a representative. Dr. Tuggy, as you guys know, is moving off of our board, and we as the governance committee had the pleasure of interviewing Lori. I'm looking down here at Carlene too, of interviewing Lori last week as we looked at, she was our first guinea pig of our protocol around once an application is in and following up with that. And we said right away, we want to bring her forth to the nomination to our meeting on Monday. So Carlene, do you have anything? I didn't prep you for this. Anything you want to add from that?
Yeah, just it was a really nice interview and time, and Lori's a great candidate with a lot of passion, and we just so appreciated her responses to the questions that we asked, and just really feel that she would bring a lot to the board. So we're excited about that.
Yeah.
All right.
So from our position, we would like to recommend that someone nominate Lori to join our board.
And actually, I would like to officially be the nominee for that, or I mean, the motion for that.
Thank you, Carlene.
So I would move to add Lori Bergman to the board of directors.
This is Manuel, I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed would be nay. And any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion's carried. Welcome, Lori, for the at-large seat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm looking very forward to being on this board. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Molly, just to comment again what Linda
Yes.
said, thank you, Lori, for going through our original process. So what we did have done was Lori filled out and submitted an application, and the governance committee reviewed it and talked about additional questions that we would want to ask Lori. And then we had the opportunity to do a 30-minute interview and then come back together quickly and make the recommendation. So also thank you, governance committee members, for going through that initial process as well.
All right, thank you. And Linda, that is it for you?
That is it. That
All right,
concludes
thank
my
you.
report.
Thank you. Okay. This time, the Finance Committee budget, Sarah, approval of the 2024 budget.
Hey, everybody. We just wanted to take a few minutes in case anybody had any last minute questions on the budget, and then look at entertaining a motion to approve the budget. Again, we anticipate having revenues of 8.8 million and expenses of 1.3 million. So those are the numbers we're approving today. Does anybody have any questions?
And for reference, what page of the board packet?
Oh, page 14. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. Page
Just-
14 shows the budget for approval.
And I know this question came up in the finance committee, and just based on what Caroline was sharing earlier, since we didn't have all the details around community-based care coordination expenditures, the resource work that Caroline shared earlier is not reflected in the budget, but we anticipate bringing more of that information forward when it gets worked out in more detail.
All right, Sarah, I'm going to ask one more time, but at this time, we're entertaining a motion to approve the 2024 budget as presented.
I so move.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Second. A second.
Okay, thank you, Linda. We have a first and a second. Any additional questions? Hearing none at this time, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I
Aye.
Opposed would be nay. And abstain. Hearing none, motion approved. Thank you for the budget, 2024 budget.
All right, and the last thing I had is I want to bring everybody's attention to the reimbursement policy. It starts on page 15, and this is for board travel and expenses. I know it's budget time, all this is going on, but please remember you can always submit a reimbursement should you be traveling on behalf of Thriving. So please give this a read through. I want to just make sure everyone knows it's submitted at the time. Sorry, hold on. Let me pull myself back together. Sorry about that. You would submit this reimbursement at the start of the meeting. You can always use Google Maps for your mileage. Meals are per diem. So please consider this when you guys are looking at attending anything in person or on behalf of Thriving Together. I'll also bring it back up in March. Oh, no, wait, he said it was in September. I will bring it up at the board meeting before the in-person retreat.
And this conversation came up at our retreat in Spelem, and so we just really wanted what we realized was the policy was approved a number of years ago, and so we really just wanted to get in front of board members and let you know we would be proactive to encouraging you guys to seek reimbursement when travel is occurring. Because yeah, we know it's something that you guys and/or your organizations take time and money out of, and so to compensate you at least for travel expenses is the least we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Molly, and I have actually used that in the past. It was many years ago, and the hospital that I worked at would not reimburse me for mileage, and so I did take advantage of it at that time, and it was great. So I'm glad that we're offering it and making it so that everyone knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve.
And Molly, we don't need to approve.
Okay. Oh, well then, never
Sorry.
mind. We're just going to talk about it some more. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. One last thing. Sarah, is that it for now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. We have earned our break. Looks like that's where we are now in the agenda. So I'm going to give everyone, John, should we do 2 o'clock?
Sure.
All right. I'll see everyone at 2 o'clock. Call the meeting back. Thank you, everyone. And I don't know if you guys have that feeling today, but I kind of feel like we're scooting along on our agenda. So I'm not going to promise an early dismissal, but it may happen. So we'll just see. And at this time, We have the mission and 5-year goals for Thriving Together. The Thriving Together team is going to be doing this, and there will be a board decision. Excuse
I'm
me.
gonna take it on here. And Morgan, can you actually bring up the 5-year goal document that's in the board packet on page 19?
Yes, let me grab that.
I think I'm gonna go that route. So at the last meeting, I know we gave a little bit of a preview and an update of some of the work we were doing around we had originally crafted a few years ago a 3-year priorities and goals document that include our mission, vision, and our strategic priorities. And at the last board meeting, we went through our updates to our 5-year strategic priorities. And so we really updated it to a 5-year goals document. As well, we really went through and did a lot of updates to our strategic priorities. Specifically, just as a reminder, we crafted this in a way so as you read priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3, when you look at the bolded section, that is what we are trying to do. And then when you look at the sub-bulleted section, that's the end that we are trying to accomplish. And so really, we just wanted to bring this back to you so you had this in your packet to review and look at what those key priorities were and the end statements associated with this. I had a chance to share this with the executive committee to provide some feedback on this, as well as share it out with the board to get feedback in November. I would say the primary inputs that I got from the board really was that everyone felt good that responded about the priorities and the way they were listed. A few recommendations that really came out of it was when we're trying to put a lot of outcomes into one bullet, look at either simplifying that or breaking them down to make sure that whatever outcomes we try to achieve, we are able to measure them. As well as really that focus. And Maddie, I know Maddie's doesn't have her camera on, but Maddie had also emphasized that focus of developing outcome metrics to track how we are moving to these ends or these goals that we are trying to achieve. And so we are bringing this in front of you all to see if you have any questions associated with the documents and the outcomes and the priorities associated with it. If not, our hope is really that the board gives a thumbs up at this point to say, this is the right direction you're going. In December and January, we plan as a team to work internally to develop specific outcome metrics associated with these priorities and end statements that we can then bring back to the board in February for review, and with a goal of potentially approving them in the February meeting. A few things I would call out is one of the reasons we're not looking for approval on this is because even through some of the exercise and discussion with the executive committee, as we're identifying outcomes associated with these ends, we may end up having to make some recommended changes, either to simplify them or make sure that it really is in alignment with what we're trying to measure and hit and confirm, as Maddie, you said a number of times, that we are able to measure what our outcomes are. And so this is our starting template that we're working on, but there may be a few tweaks as we really develop outcomes to measure over the next few months. I know you guys had a chance to look at some of these in November. So is there any questions that board members had with this?
John, this is Molly.
Yes.
Is this something that I am going to take when I am out in the public speaking on behalf of Thriving Together? Is it going to be my speaking points? Is it on the website as right where mission and vision, and then it'll have our 5-year goals there? I was just wondering where I'll see this again.
Yeah, I would say this is something we could put on our website once we get it finalized. I think you could use this in some ways as talking points of really what we're trying to achieve. I think what we can look at doing is crafting almost like a talking points document to go with it, so that, you know, sometimes when it's in more of a formalized document, it's hard to speak to, but we can then Morgan can work to craft some talking points that you guys can utilize as board members. But it should give you an idea of really what we're trying to achieve as an organization and the direction we're going. Go ahead, Teresa.
Yeah, so as you guys were crosswalking this, the original document, we didn't know as much about the new waiver. So can you just speak to how the new waiver and that large investment is kind of infused in this plan? I mean, I can see it how it's written, but just kind of your vision.
Yeah, in my mind, when you look at really priority 1 and priority 2, that's a lot of the work that was done under the strategy work group and the stewardship council as we adopted the vital conditions and we were looking at forming a network that was centered around thriving in the vital conditions. And so those 2 priorities are really, a lot of the work underneath those will be focused on that network building. When you look under priority 3, we originally had behavioral health and community-based care coordination called out in 2 separate priorities. We realize a lot of the work we are really doing is around coordination of care, whether it's looking at how we align and connect clinical systems with community systems, or if it's focused on community-based care coordination. So a lot of that work is really focused under priority 3. So it's, it's hard to say, like, it feels like when you're talking about $32 million and you see a sentence and a few bullets, that there's a lot underneath that. And that's what we're also looking at building out underneath that.
Well, to me, it would seem too like the timing of the waiver is ideal for us as we've evolved just prior to it coming. I mean, I know we were hearing that it was likely going to be going in that direction. It just seems like it's kind of that natural ebb and flow of kind of merging some of that. We were already having a little bit of silos occurring, and maybe this will enable us to blur those silos a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's a huge emphasis, and we've talked about this a lot, because you'll see the priorities are really phrased, and we're working on phrasing them to focus on the true intent of who we're trying to support as an organization, as our partners, to create collaboration and break down those silos so that they can better serve the residents, so that all of the residents in our region can be thriving. But we're not here to provide direct services as an organization. We're here to support our community of providers in how they can better do that together, and do it in a way that supports community voice in the process. Other comments or questions? Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Teresa. So this document as a whole, you will see again come back in February with additional outcome metrics attached to it. And again, our goal is to really continue to progress this so that we have, again, Molly, like you said, that high level of understanding of what we're trying to achieve and really how we're going to measure that. And that's, for me, that's a nice step of really helping the board also support the board in what direction inputs you want to provide in shaping the organization as a whole. Today, we did have one specific thing we did want to do. And so throughout this process, we've internally been looking at how we can make some adjustments to our mission statement. And so you'll see on page 18 in the board decision, or in the packet, there's a board decision form with recommended, and we're proposing a adjustment to our mission statement. And so under that board decision form, under the background, in the first bullet, you'll see what our mission statement was: to advance whole person health and health equity in North Central Washington by unifying stakeholders, supporting collaboration, and driving systemic change with particular attention to social determinants of health. So we approved this mission. Molly, I saw you were making a motion.
Can you pull it up on the screen? It looks like you're on page 19 and I need to see, I think it's page 18. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Morgan. So we approved this mission statement a number of years ago when we started, as you can see, October 5th of 2020, when we started this journey of figuring out what our future state has been. So this was prior to our strategy work group really digging into looking at our next steps, prior to us adopting the vision of thriving in adopting the framework of the vital conditions. And so as we've gone through this whole process, we've internally been looking at what would be a change to our mission statement that would better align with the direction that we've gone over the number of years. And so the recommendation coming forward is to change it to advance health and well-being in North Central Washington by unifying partners, supporting collaboration, and enabling systems change. And so I think the few primary changes there I would call out that the recommendation is to really move from advanced whole person health to health equity, to really moving it to a broader advanced health and well-being. We as an organization are utilizing the terminology well-being more. We're looking at it broader than even healthcare, which whole person health is a little bit more tied to look at how we're moving health and well-being across our region. I think the other major change is removing the last take line with particular attention to social determinants of health. And some of the recommendation there is, one, a little bit to simplify the mission statement, but two is even in our work, we've adopted a framework of the vital conditions. The feds in the state are looking at terminology around health-related social needs, health-related services. And so we're seeing an evolution or a change in some of the terminology around social determinants of health. And so for us, honestly, instead of even replacing it with a different terminology, we know that's the direction we're driving towards. To be a little bit more nimble, we're just recommending removing it. The core intent, I would say, is staying there, but the changes are an adjustment to be, in my recommendation, more in alignment with our current direction. Nancy, I feel like you're looking at unmuting, but I can't tell. Nope. Any questions on that?
Actually, I changed my mind, John. I wasn't, and then I changed my mind. Actually, I would just make a statement that I like that move, because really, when we look at social determinants of health, we can go all the way back to ACEs, right? And over time, there continues to be this evolution and just rewording of things. So I think just opening up this way gives us the ability to be flexible as those things change.
Yeah, this is Molly. Also, using the terminology social determinants of health just makes me feel like it's so 2022 and we're going forward. So if all of our partners are no longer using that terminology, then I love the idea of just dropping that. So I'm fully in agreement.
I'll say you get a mix out there, to be honest. You probably hear a few different terminologies this day and age. Other reactions. If you have a gut reaction, feel free to unmute and share it. You know, I want you guys to feel also if you feel like this resonates with you or not.
Well, John, I will echo what's already been said, just in the standpoint, it felt very buzzwordy before and very academic. And if we're talking about being in community with the community, I 100% support the changes. I think it's more clear, it's plain language, and it's speaking to the root of the work rather than kind of an academic mindset principle. I think it's fantastic. I struggled with the previous wording as well. So yeah, 100% supportive.
I think it's general and broad, so we can change with it. If I don't think we need to do anything else with it. I think it's fine the way it is. I think our actions will bring to life what that really means, you know.
I'll jump in from the non-healthcare. I'm always looking at our acronym page on our agenda. Just a couple things. I feel like anybody reading this can understand what our purpose is. So it makes sense. And I always think of, I think I said this at our retreat, you can word something to death. So can you live with it and publicly support it? Absolutely. I like this change.
This is Manuel. Hey, John, I was just thinking, I seem to recall, and I just looked it up. So NAC and CMS are actually moving away from the term social determinants of health, and they're replacing it with social drivers. So just to stay on the cutting edge and to confuse more people, might as well make the change now.
Well, and that's why I said I'm not recommending replacing it with another term. I'm just recommending cutting it because everyone wants to have their buzzword or their terminology to explain something so that they can corner the market on it in a way. Well, if there's no, Nancy, go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is that I love, just personally, I love statements that I can remember and not have to read 10,000 times to remember what we said. And as I've told people, most of all the places I've ever worked, when I worked at Epic, I loved the statement there because it was working hand in hand with children, youth, and families. And to this day, I can still say that. And I think that, and I understand what that means, right? So I think this statement is one of those that could live on because it would be one I could remember.
All right, well, Molly, if there's no, if there's any major concerns, I would turn it back to you to entertain a motion.
All right, yes, at this time, I do entertain a motion to update the mission statement.
This is Manuel, so moved.
Thank you. And do I
This
have
is Teresa. I'll second.
Thank you. Last chance for any further conversation. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed would be nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion approved, motion carried. Thank you. Good job. That I do love an annual meeting with a mission change. That's always exciting and useful.
Well, we won't make that a constant though, not every
No,
year.
yeah, not every year. No. This is a good one. I like it. All right. Up next, we have vital condition review. And I think that we have some board members who will be stepping off to join other meetings. And that is fine. We are done with the voting portion of the meeting. So if you do have to leave, just leave us a note. But Thriving Together staff.
And I'm going to turn this over to Veronica. Before I do, I want to say Linda McKay at some point in time is going to have to do a tutorial on how to use the Zoom feature. So maybe we'll just build that into a board meeting in 2024.
We have the AI companion going, so we are right on the cutting edge.
Awesome. But I will turn it over to Veronica.
All right. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Well, thank you. Good afternoon. And yeah, per usual, wrapping up the meeting with a little insight on two specific vital conditions. So the first vital condition is meaningful work and wealth. And I shared this at my very first board meeting with you all, but I have a personal, connection to this vital condition. Essentially, meaningful work and wealth is, what allows and provides individuals the means to live a healthy and secure life. It includes much more than good paying jobs, careers, or financial security. The meaningful work and wealth includes basically a sense of self-worth, a purpose of, a sense of purpose in the work that you do, that your work is rewarding, and it, eventually evolves into personal, family, and community wealth. So that is a little bit about the meaningful work and wealth vital condition. The second vital condition is lifelong learning. And this also goes hand in hand with meaningful work and wealth, because oftentimes a good education can help secure meaningful work and subsequently good wealth. Lifelong learning is about good education for everybody. From birth, we are developing and we're learning, so investing in good education and learning can really maximize our capacities to learn, and then, you know, positively shaping our social and behavioral development as we continue to learn throughout the course of one's life. So there are, of course, a lot of disparities in access to education, but it is well known that good early education will and can help launch young people into productive futures. So this is a short, I guess, kind of feel for these two vital conditions. But you can read more from the material provided and the resources we included. The basically past legacies that have enabled or hindered the vital conditions, as well as major forces that are currently shaping future legacies. And then towards the right side of each of those resources, you'll find facts and figures about each of the two vital conditions. So that pretty much wraps up the quick vital condition education on my part. So unless there's any questions.
This is Molly, and I will always have something to say. Just today in my office, a young woman came in, mid-age, maybe she was almost 30, and had just had some life events, some domestic violence and divorcing and things that brought her to a new phase in her life. And she timidly asked me if I knew how she could get a GED. So I did look up that piece for her. And then the organization I referred her to includes helping her with a FAFSA, helping her get into college. And she left shaking and in tears saying, I just thought on a whim I would stop in to see if you could help me. And she said, I feel suddenly now like I'm back in learning. I actually have a choice and a chance. And I love those stories when they happen. And it's so vital to your health, your mental health, by knowing that you are reaching your potential. So I just wanted to say that. It just happened today. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
And I just reiterate that part of our goal is just to continue to have points in time in each meeting to bring up vital conditions. Just, again, best way we can continue to learn is through repetition and seeing it come throughout the year. And so we're just going to continue to do this in 2024 as well, just as quick reminders and educations on how we can lean into those key vital conditions to support individuals thriving. So continue to encourage you to read the documents. You're going to continue, you'll see more as we get into 2024 as well. And thank you, Veronica. That was perfect.
Thank you.
Molly, I know we're at the end, but I want to give a quick shout out. I know Teresa has been working with our AI components to figure out how we more effectively track meetings, and you saw it on today. So she's done a great job researching, and then we ended up landing in Zoom. And so we've been using AI in both some of our committee meetings, as well as this might be our first board meeting that we've used this in, but I can tell you it's exciting and scary sometimes how efficient and accurate Zoom AI can be, but it's going to make our work a lot more efficient. So I wanted to give Teresa a huge shout out for doing the work of getting us there in these meetings.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
So the documents that you just shared with us, the meaningful work and wealth, and are these ones they're written by whom? Who?
We pulled them off the We and the Nation network, the WIN network.
Okay.
So I can share the link out of the organization we got it from. There's a few organizations out there on the national level that really play in the space of the vital conditions. Ripple Foundation is probably the primary one where you get that information. Community initiatives or consultants have been key partners in it, as well as We in the Nation. And so we can share some of that out to get more information out as well. It can be our Christmas gift to you, Nancy, or a holiday gift.
Right.
Sorry.
I think they're really good. There's just some wording in it that, you know how you said that there are words that like raise these little, for me, the disadvantaged child, it's like we're making children disadvantaged. Anyway, those are things that I would like to say back to whoever put this in there. And I know that's, it's kind of nitpicky, but it's important, I think, over time that we correct some of those kinds of statements about children and families.
Everyone can continually learn too, even
Right.
those that at a national level. If we're really grassroots community up, it's it's everyone in community that provides and feeds into even the national level.
Right.
We have some time, so I didn't know if anyone has some announcements they would like to make or any last words. Like, we are really ahead of time today. I'm going to give you all
Molly,
again. Yes.
I do have a couple of announcements in our region for public health. I don't know how public it's been put out there, but Lori Jones has been appointed as the administrator of the Okanagan Public Health Department, district. She's essentially been their administrator for as long as I've been in my role, but they took on a model of shared leadership several years ago. But Lori in the public health world is who we went to when there was outbreaks or public health concerns. And so now it's official. And so she is their public health administrator there. So I think they made it official a couple of months ago, but I had it on my notes to be sure and let you all know. And then Chelan Douglas Health District, they do have a deputy administrator now, Kristen Hosey. She was pretty present during COVID as a consultant and contractor with Chelan Douglas Health District. And now she's serving in that role to help Luke really rebuild their organization. They're still in the progress of rebuilding post kind of the era of COVID and a lot of loss of leadership that they've experienced there. So just wanted to pass that along to you all for your situational awareness.
Thank you. And I will have to reach out to Lori too. That's, I haven't talked to her for a while. Anyone else have anything they would like to add? Senator Warnick, how are you?
Well, I'm doing well. I took advantage of our healthcare system the 1st of November to have my knee replaced. And so trying to navigate around with a cane. I'm still using a cane, and so just learning how to be slow and deliberate. But what I would like to say, I was pleased to hear what John said about the Department of Health working with them. I don't always hear compliments about the Department of Health, and so I was very pleased to hear that they've been good to work with in your position and what the work that we're doing. So it's there's an awful lot happening in the state. We are coming up on a very short session in January. It starts January 8th, and it's only a 60-day session. So it'll be intense, short, and hopefully we won't cause any problems for organizations like ours, and we'll only add good legislation. So doing well. Thanks, Molly.
Yeah.
Well, Senator Warnick, I should clarify, I was complimenting the Healthcare Authority.
Oh,
but
Healthcare Authority, okay.
I will give the DOH, Department of Health, kudos as well, because even in the Care Connect world and that work, they've been very inclusive of us as an accountable community of health, even though we don't have a Care Connect contract. And so we've stayed well informed in that process in conjunction with Deb Miller and Action Health Partners. And that was a scenario they could have left us out of the loop.
Yeah. And I just saw Teresa's note too. So I agree on both Department of Health and Healthcare
We are,
authorities.
yeah, we're all on that same page.
We are. So just keep me posted if there's anything that you think I might be able to help with. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And heal up. Get well. Yeah,
Yeah, I will.
thanks. Anything
just-
else?
Yeah,
No?
just curious. So when do we get to see the summary? The AI summary?
Oh,
I mean, are you asking if you can see it in its raw form?
Yeah, I just want to see, yeah.
oh yeah, just to see what it's like. Yeah.
I'll get it right after the meeting. I mean, I can send it out to you guys in the raw form, but I would want to make corrections before I make it official.
I know, I'm just
Minutes.
curious from a
Yeah.
technical
Like,
standpoint.
yeah.
Yeah, I say if he wants to see it, yeah, because it's fascinating and it makes minutes so much easier to do. So yeah. All right. And it's very current. Any other comments? Anyone from the audience?
Molly, I put a comment in that I was just going to be sending out the conflict of interest
Very good.
disclosures
Yep.
via DocuSign. So be looking for that.
Perfect. And that DocuSign is working for everyone, I'm assuming, so that's good. I got it down like that. All right. Well, it's about 2:30, so I'm going to go ahead and with no further questions, comments, concerns, give you all back like 90 minutes of your life. I hope you're able to, I don't know, attend a grandchild's Christmas event or something. Do something fun with this hour and a half. And thank you, everyone. I adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Molly.
December.
Thank you.